Okay, and today's putting it all together lesson where we take what we learned last week about reading and writing quality haiku and apply it to a haiku that we read together now and write on our own later. Here's today's poem. Wild rose bending and bending even more with the bee's weight. Let me read that again. Wild rose bending and bending even more with the bee's weight. Okay, so we know it's about nature. It's about a rose and a bee. We know that it's short. I said it in one breath. It does not follow that 5-7-5 pattern of syllables because it does not have to. Now, the kigo, the nature season word. Can anyone find it? There might be two. Yes. If you said rose or bee, I would consider both of those to be kigo. They make us think of summer because bees are most active in the summer and the roses blossom in summer. And so this I envision as a very warm, sunny summer day because roses come out and are bright blossoms for bees to be active in on a sunny day. Bees don't work too hard on rainy days and roses don't really open on rainy days. All right, how about the koreji, the cut word? That's really just a punctuation mark. Yes, you saw it. It's here. The hyphen that breaks apart this poem into two unequal parts. The first line and the second two lines. And it's that division that'll help us to compare. So what is in the first line and what is in the second that we can compare? Yes, the rose and the bee. That would be a first good initial comparison. So let's talk about that. Actually, no, let's back up. Let's get a good visual image of what's going on in this poem because that image is really going to help us to understand it and make some meaning from it. Wild rose bending and bending even more with the bee's weight. So can you imagine a rose? Wild roses look very much like cultivated roses. Can you imagine a rose bush covered, beautiful dark green, covered in these beautiful, brilliant pink or red blossoms, rose blossoms? And roses, of course, grow at the end of the stems, right? That's how we have like a dozen roses you can put in a vase, that each one's at the end of a stem. And so when the bee lands on the rose and crawls to the inside to collect its pollen, that rose flower bends down with the weight of the bee. And it bends again, so it's like it's bouncing a little bit, right? Like you've seen flowers sort of bounce up and down and move with the weight of the bee as the bee shifts its weight around the flower. So this is a rose that's sort of bouncing up and down as the bee is working inside of it to collect its pollen. Do you see that? We have the reds, the pinks of the rose. We have the yellows of the bee and maybe the yellow of the center of the rose if it's a wild rose. We have the bright greens of the bush and maybe the blue sky above. We have the warm air on our skin. So that's the image that's being invoked here, evoked. Okay. So, wild rose bending and bending even more with the bee's weight. We compare the flower to the bee. Well, it's a partnership, isn't it? One train of thought could be the rose and the bee are in partnership. The bee needs the rose for pollen from which it'll make food, honey, right? And the rose needs the bee to help pollinate itself and make new rose bushes in nearby areas because it's in that pollination that the rose will then be able to make seeds from which new plants will grow. And so this is a partnership working together, the plant and the animal, each getting what it needs, each helping the other. So maybe cooperation is one train of thought, and we can continue to think about this poem through the lens of cooperation, through the lens of helping one another. But there's also this amazing action of bending, right? The bee is bending the rose, but the rose isn't breaking. The rose is evolved and grown to allow the bee to bend it, right? It's flexible. So maybe another train of thought that you could go down is that while the bee is working hard, the rose bush is too. The rose bush is evolved and is doing its job of allowing the bee to do its work. Or maybe the bending is symbolic. So while we all have to, maybe the bending means we all have to give a little to allow others to be their best selves, or we all have to maybe be flexible with one another as humans, from human to human, flexible, patient. We all have to bend to allow others to show us themselves, to be friends, to be respectful, to be good family members. Maybe that's the train of thought we go down. I also want to point out one final thing. Like yesterday's poem, hidden within this poem is a type of figurative language that we have studied before. Do you see it? Yes. Look at this. Another instance of alliteration. Bending, and B. B, and B, one in each line, just like yesterday's poem. But what's more, a keen reader will notice there's also the wild, with, and wait. There's two instances of alliteration in this very short poem, which makes the poem feel complete and feel like a unit, feel like it was intentionally created, and feel like it's a complete, self-contained poem. Wild rose bending and bending even more with the bee's weight. And finally, do you notice how the bending is repeated twice, once in each line? It almost gives you that feeling of that bouncing feeling, the bee and bending and bounce. You can almost, the sound of the poem almost mimics like the bending of the flower over and over as that bee works and shifts its weight and gravity takes it down just a little bit. Not interesting. All right, so a couple trains of thought and a lot of interesting things in this poem. So continue to use your best writing to create your haiku. Kigo in every poem, Koreji in every poem. Try to compare things to make meaning if you can. And of course, write about nature. That's why we're doing these during our sit spots. All right. Thank you for listening. I can't wait to read what you've written.